The morning started like any other, until I saw the orange notice stapled to my door. The HOA had decided my pond, the calm, silent heart of my yard, was a violation. They were sending crews to drain it. To them, it was just water. To me, it was a ticking time bomb, because what they didn't know was that beneath that still, glassy surface flowed an invisible artery, a hidden part of the city's emergency water grid. And if they touched it, if they drained even an inch, they wouldn't just ruin my pond. They'd shut off water to the entire neighborhood, and they were already on their way. What happened next will leave you on stunned. The neighborhood loved to brag about its perfection. Perfectly clipped emerald lawns, each one measured with a gardener's ruler. Identical white mailboxes that stood like obedient soldiers at the curb. Even their holiday lights flickered in synchronized patterns, like programmed smiles across every rooftop. It was the kind of place where conformity wasn't just expected, it was enforced. And then there was my yard. At the far corner, half hidden by old oak trees, lay a deep, stone-lined pond. It wasn't fancy. No fountains, no koi fish, no plastic flamingos. Just still, dark water, so clear it mirrored the clouds like molten glass. When the breeze calmed, it looked like a sheet of polished black marble dropped straight from the sky. But to them, to the Homeowners Association, that quiet pool was a provocation, a blemish, a crack in their perfect mirror. A silent rebellion they couldn't tolerate. At first, they only whispered about it at meetings. I'd catch fragments floating across the room like gnats, unsightly. It breeds mosquitoes, brings down property value. I kept my eyes down, my expression neutral, and said nothing. Because the truth was, I couldn't let them know how much that pond mattered. I couldn't let them know what it really was. Over time, their whispers sharpened into warnings. Little passive-aggressive letters appeared in my mailbox, printed on stiff white paper with the HOA crest embossed at the top. They were all written in the same cold, brittle tone. Please consider removing the non-standard water feature. This is a matter of neighborhood consistency. Failure to comply may result in further action. Each note came closer to a threat. Each month, their shadows crept closer to my gate, but I said nothing. I let them believe I was stubborn, eccentric, maybe even careless, because the alternative, telling them the truth, was unthinkable. They believed the pond was ornamental, just a personal whim, a reflection of vanity. They didn't know it was a reflection of something else entirely. Power. They thought they were playing a game of appearances. Neat yards, matching fences, perfect harmony. They had no idea they were tiptoeing around a pressure-loaded artery of the city, a silent machine disguised as serenity. No idea that their children's showers, their sprinklers, their fire hydrants all depended on this single unassuming pool at the edge of my yard. No idea that if they touched it, they'd be the ones who set the whole place on fire, figuratively, and maybe literally, so I let them glare. I let them whisper. I let them plot, because what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that this quiet mirror of water wasn't mine at all. It belonged to the city, to the lifeblood of this entire district. And if they ever crossed that line, if they ever breached its surface, they wouldn't just be breaking their precious symmetry, they'd be breaking everything. They had finally done it. The HOA had escalated from whispers to war. I peeled the paper off the door. The staples screeched as they tore free, a sound far too loud in the brittle morning silence. There was a signature at the bottom, Walter Hayes, the HOA board president. Of course it was Walter. Walter was the type who measured grass height with a ruler, the kind who called code enforcement if someone's trash can lid was left ajar. He lived for control, and now he thought he had me cornered. As the day crawled on, the neighborhood seemed to hum with electric gossip. Small clusters of neighbors formed like storm clouds on the sidewalks, speaking in low tones that stopped the second I walked by. Finally, one muttered, too loud. About time, another replied, their smile just a bit too sharp. By sunset, their eyes weren't just curious anymore. They were hungry. That night I didn't sleep. I sat beside the pond under a moon that hung like a blade. Staring at its glassy surface, the water looked peaceful, went almost too peaceful, but beneath that calm was the heart of a sleeping machine. I knew exactly what would happen if they followed through with their threat. If those pumps touched the water line, the pressure sensors would detect a drop. The system would assume a breach, a contamination event.
You think you can
It
just
wouldn't
walk
just
away
shut down
from
my
this?
property. It would slam
have
steel
no
valves
idea
shut
what
on
you've
every
done.
line feeding this entire district. No tap water, no sprinklers, no fire hydrants, nothing. The HOA thought they were fixing an eyesore. They were about to trigger a full-scale lockdown of the city's emergency grid. And the worst part? I couldn't tell them. The city had made that clear when they installed it. This system is classified. Disclosure is prohibited under emergency infrastructure law. If I exposed the truth, I wouldn't just lose the pond. I'd face federal charges, and the city would relocate the reservoir entirely, leaving this neighborhood defenseless during the next disaster. So I sat there silent, as shadows from the oak branches rippled across the pond's black surface. And somewhere inside me, a decision began to harden like cooling steel. If they came for it, if they actually brought their machines, their pumps, their false authority, I would stop them, not with threats, not with anger, but with patience, with timing, with the simple cold weight of the truth, revealed only when it could crush them completely. Because this wasn't just about a pond anymore. It was about the lifeline hidden beneath their feet, the invisible artery that kept their perfect world alive, and they had no idea how close they were to severing it. On the 7th morning, they came. 5 HOA board members, flanked by hired contractors with industrial hoses and portable pumps. Their leader, a smug man named Walter, wore aviator sunglasses like he was marching into battle. "This will be quick," he barked. "Drain it, fill it, reseed it. By tonight, it'll be like it never existed." I stood on my porch, silent, watching as they positioned the pump hoses into the pond's dark heart. The moment the first motor roared to life, I felt the earth hum under my feet. A vibration, faint but growing. They were waking it. Deep underground, pressure sensors were activating, valves preparing to seal. My chest tightened. The grid thought this was a breach. If I waited too long, the whole city block would lose water within minutes. At first, no one noticed. The contractors kept shouting over the engine noise. Walter checked his watch impatiently, like this was just another chore. But I saw it. The pond's waterline dropped barely an inch before a sharp metallic ping cut through the air. The surface rippled unnaturally, like something exhaled from the depths. Then, silence. The pumps sputtered and died. Their motors locked up as if the power had been cut off, though the generators still ran. A low siren began wailing from somewhere beneath the soil. Not loud, but bone deep. A sound meant for systems, not humans. The ground under us trembled. What was that?" one contractor whispered, backing away. Walter tried to scoff, but his voice cracked.
Probably just...
"Air pockets," I stepped forward. "No," I said quietly. "That was the failsafe." Every head turned. "The pond isn't a pond," I continued. "It's an emergency pressure reservoir. It's wired directly into the city's disaster grid. You just triggered a lockdown protocol." Their faces drained of color faster than the water had. Within minutes, 2 black city utility SUVs screeched to a halt outside my driveway. Uniformed engineers leapt out, voices sharp and urgent, waving encrypted tablets. They rushed to the pond, inspecting the half-submerged sensor pylons, their boots splashing in the shallows. One of them turned to me, exhaling hard. "You stopped them just in time. If the level had dropped another foot, the city would have sealed this entire quadrant's supply for 72 hours. The HOA members froze, mouths open, their perfect suburban confidence shattering like glass. Walter muttered something about misunderstandings, but the engineers ignored him completely. They handed me an official placard stamped with the city's seal, designated emergency reservoir, do not tamper. The engineers left as quickly as they came, the sirens fading into the distance. The contractors slunk away in silence, leaving their hoses behind like abandoned weapons, and the HOA? They couldn't meet my eyes. Since that day, no one mentions my pond. They walk past it with their heads down, pretending it doesn't exist. But sometimes late at night, when the wind is still and the water gleams like black glass, I catch Walter watching from across the street. Not with anger anymore, with fear, because now they all know. The thing they tried to erase was the only reason their faucets still run, and that's how the HOA nearly drained the lifeline of their own neighborhood. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe to this channel to get more stories like these.